I worked as a flight attendant on private jets for a decade, minus the truly wealthy passengers were never the ones you'd notice. I spent 10 years as a private jet flight attendant for the ultra-wealthy. The billionaires who treated me best wore the same watch for 20 years and asked about my family, while celebrities who appeared wealthy on Instagram threw tantrums over champagne brands. My richest client ever wore New Balance sneakers and brought his own sandwich, while the bankruptcy-bound entrepreneur demanded we redecorate the plane to match his social media aesthetic. The wealthiest person I ever served on a private jet ate a homemade peanut butter sandwich during a transatlantic flight. For 10 years I worked as a cabin attendant on ultra-luxury private aircraft, serving everyone from old money billionaires to newly minted tech entrepreneurs, celebrities. What I learned about true wealth could fill a book, porn, and contradict nearly everything portrayed in media. My first week on the job, I was assigned to a G650 flight from New York to Geneva, having trained for months on proper champagne service and caviar presentation. I was nervous about impressing our BP passengers. When the car arrived, I expected glamour. Instead, an elderly gentleman in khakis and a wrinkled button-down stepped aboard, carrying a worn leather briefcase and a Tupperware container. "Just water for me, thank you," he said when I offered champagne, "and please don't worry about meal service." I brought my sandwich. That unassuming passenger was worth approximately $17 billion. He built one of America's largest manufacturing companies, owned properties on 3 continents, and was flying to Switzerland to donate $200 million to childhood education programs. Over the years, a pattern emerged. The truly wealthy parent, those with generation fortunes or who built substantial businesses, pacta, were often the most understated passengers. They rarely mentioned money and treated staff with consistent respect. They wore modest accessories, pern often the same watch for decades, or comfortable, well-worn shoes. They spent lavishly only on experiences or items with personal meaning rather than status symbols. They expressed gratitude for small courtesies and remembered crew members' names. The German heiress worth $4.8 billion who always brought handwritten thank you notes for the crew. The tech founder who wore the same brand of $15 socks he'd worn before making his first million. The finance magnate who insisted we all eat together during a long flight rather than serving him separately. By contrast, those most obsessed with displaying wealth were often at the shakier end of the financial spectrum. A reality Wong personality once demanded we delay takeoff until we could source a specific brand of sparkling water, then spent the flight staging Instagram photos with champagne she didn't drink. 6 months later, news broke of her massive tax evasion problems. A cult entrepreneur insisted we remove and replace all the tan leather seats with white ones for his 3-hour flight, purred at a cost of over $100,000 part to match his social media aesthetic. His company filed for bankruptcy the following year. The most telling incident happened during severe turbulence on a flight from Los Angeles to Tokyo. As we hit repeated air pockets, a famous musician became increasingly agitated, shouting about his expensive watch getting damaged if he spilled his drink, and demanding we somehow fix the turbulence immediately. Seated across from him was a reserved woman in her 60s, who spent the rough flight calmly reading. When we finally reached smooth air, she asked if I was okay, then left a handwritten note thanking me for staying composed during the difficult flight. Later, the captain informed me she was the controlling shareholder of a multinational corporation worth billions. While the musician had recently taken out loans to maintain his lavish lifestyle amid declining record sales, the wealthiest passengers I served had nothing to prove. The tech mogul worth $50 plus billion, who flew regularly for business, brought his own reading materials and spent flights in quiet contemplation. When asking for anything, he always added, "If it's not too much trouble, or when you have a moment." My colleague once accidentally spilled coffee on a passenger's papers. She was terrified of losing her job until she realized who the passenger was.